Corporate Law Lab. I'm your host, Neil Taylor, Director of the Corporate Law Center at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. We're joined today by my co-host, Chris Caudell, making his second appearance on Corporate Law Lab, third one coming soon. And our guest today is Barbara Becker, Global Managing Partner of Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher.
You could say that, Neil.
Okay. I have been corrected.
There's only one of me.
People's titles. There's only one. Okay. The managing partner of Gibson Dunn, who, as you may have guessed already from the fact that we're laughing at each other, I've known for quite some time.
How long?
More than 20 years now.
Way more than 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
I think it might be in the 90s.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it was, anyway, let's not talk about that particular deal, the bond deal that almost killed me. But no, we can actually talk about, when we get to it, the beauty contest that I ran of a bunch of New York firms and how you guys won it at Gibson Dunn. And then we worked together a lot after that. But let's back way up and talk about where you grew up very briefly and where you went to undergrad before going to law school.
Sure. So I grew up in Chappaqua, New York. I went to college. I applied early to Wesleyan University, which is a liberal arts college in Middletown, Connecticut. I majored in math and economics.
Wow.
Right. Why? In my high school, the Horace Greeley High School, math was one of their supercharged programs. And so we were very advanced in high school in math. And so when I got to college, it was like I was already so many levels ahead. And so it was an easy major to obtain. And then when I took economics, it kind of gave me an insight into the larger world, but it was still grounded in numbers. So it was comfort for me. Whereas like going into English or history would have been really challenging, and writing all those papers would have been scary to me.
And then from there, did you go straight to law school?
Straight away. There was really, the decision for me was, now what? At the time, I had very laissez-faire parents, and up to the point where I said, I think I might want to do investment banking. And my father, who really was like happy Jack, his name was Jack, he was always like in a good mood. He just like came down hard and said, that is not a career for you. I think he was thinking about it more in the broker type of field, like investment banking was just at its nascent stages. So with that crossed off, then it was like, okay, I need to delay decision making, go to law school and just expand my options and figure it out.
So it wasn't like I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 6 and now here I am.
Opposite. My father was a corporate lawyer, and he would regale, he loved being a corporate lawyer, loved it in his soul. It was like what he loved, the deal, and he loved helping clients. And every night at dinner, he would regale us with law stories. Like my sister and I would just roll our eyes and like, here we go, another one. Barbara, at 6 years old, do you know what intellectual property is? No, Dad, and I don't care. But nothing would deter him. He loved his stories. And so I think for me, it was pretty much doing anything but what my dad was doing. And then full circle, I'm doing exactly what my dad ended up doing.
And you ended up going to NYU?
Yep. Went straight to NYU, loved being in the village, in the city. And I actually loved law school. It was so different from being a math and economics major, really expanded my mind in a way that I didn't get to experience in college. But it didn't necessarily direct me into corporate law. thought that I wanted to be a First Amendment litigator. Again, anything but what my father did. Nothing against my father. And I worked as a summer associate in the law firm where Floyd Abrams was a partner, who's like
Yeah.
the most famous First Amendment litigator. Coincidentally, we just launched a First Amendment practice group today. And I got the best assignment as a summer associate you could possibly get, which was there was a murder in Central Park. You might remember this, Neil, like the Upper East Side preppy murder.
Yeah.
And there was a confession by the guy, Robert Chambers, and our client was NBC, and they wanted access to the videotape confession of Robert Chambers. So my job was to write what the law was on why they should be able to get access. And it was all a reference to the Watergate cases, and it was so fun. But to this day, I think my beautifully written 60-page legal memo has yet to be read. I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I need to find something like a little more action and a little bit more engaged. So I switched during the summer to corporate, and I actually liked it. And, it was probably in my blood from a very early age. And then I stuck with it.
Your father must have loved that you came around, and it was all because of what he
I'm
told you
sure.
over dinner, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. My own kids have stayed as far away from the law as they can possibly get. You got a physicist and a geologist who,
So
just
I have four. The three older ones are all computer science kids. Fourth one, who's in college now, I think is heading to law school, but no, I haven't said a word.
we won't say anything.
Exactly.
Just because we're recording this, don't worry.
Exactly. He won't listen.
No problem, right?
That's for sure.
So did you join Gibson then straight out of law school, or?
No, I actually started my career at Simpson Thatcher as an associate. I moved and then joined Gibson Dunn as a partner with the whole group that Dennis Friedman and all,
Got it.
2000. So I've been here for 25 years.
Okay, so that actually dates when we met each other because you guys had just joined Gibson.
So that's exact. So it was not the 90s.
It was not the 90s, but it was very, very close. It was like you guys had just arrived at Gibson. And I remember because I was calling around, we had determined that we needed to upgrade our corporate practice. We'd worked with a firm downtown for many, many years, and the corporate partner had retired, and we were left with very nice people that we came to the conclusion were not up to how much our business had grown. I mean, when I joined Abnet, it was, I don't know, 3.5 billion revenue. And by the time I met you, I think we were like 15. And it was like, oh, this is gotten a bit more complicated. So I called around and set up meetings, and I'll never forget, I called Dennis Friedman, and his secretary said he's busy. I'll have him call you back in that New York way that makes you feel like I may never hear from them again.
Right.
And Dennis called me literally 2 minutes later.
Oh, wow.
And I remember starting the conversation. You don't know probably who I am or what I'm doing. And he reeled off everything he'd learned about me in the last 2 minutes, which was pretty impressive.
Wow. That's pre-internet. That's pretty.
Yeah. I don't know how he did it, but he knew enough.
Probably yelling down the hall to me.
Find out who this guy is. And then I came to New York and met with like 4 or 5 different firms, and it was just obvious. I don't know what it was that clicked, but the interesting thing was, and we'll go back to this being about you instead of just about me, but what really clicked was I always looked at who do they bring to the meeting other than the senior partner who's the name, and do they let those people speak, and when those people speak? Because I knew who I was going to be working with.
Right.
I mean, Dennis was great. And when we needed him for really important things, he was there for it. But I knew my day-to-day relationship wasn't going to be talking to the head. And I met you and Amy Goodman
Oh,
at that
nice.
meeting. And I was like, I walked out of it and was just like, okay, I'll go talk to the others, but this is the firm.
That's so cool.
Um,
Well, I'll just to roll forward a little bit, then I think you called me for a subsequent deal, which I don't remember.
yeah.
I was like, I'm getting the call direct. That's crazy. Does he know that Josh's a junior? But you were literally my first client, I would say, my first independent client, which I will never forget and so appreciate.
Well, thank you. It was great for so many years, and I even tried to bring you into my next adventure after AvNet in
Yes.
the weirdest board meeting I've ever attended in my life that we won't talk about anymore. But I never forget. I walked out of the room with you and Dennis. And you looked at me and looked at Dennis and said, "What in the world was that?" I'm like, "I don't know." But it was also like, "Oh, I think it's time to leave now." It was. So what initially attracted you? You went with the group from Simpson.
Yeah. So I joined a group, and the reason we chose Gibson Dunn, obviously I was part of Dennis's group, but we wanted a place that was all about excellence because, as you know, as a corporate lawyer, you're not just dependent on what you yourself do, but also on the employment, tax, antitrust, CFIUS, all the other experts. And if they are not A+ talent, it just brings you can't lift them up. You just need everything to be focused on high quality. So that was criteria number one. And then really culture, just like, am I going to fit in? Am I going to be able to build a practice like I would want? Or is somebody going to tell me, no, you must do this or you can't do that? And I knew that that would not be the type of place that I would thrive. And it seemed like it was going to let us be and grow our practice like we wanted. So it was a pretty easy choice. I think that's pretty much a through line. So back when I joined, it was a bit maniacal about law school grades. Like it even made Dennis get his, who was 50, 60, I don't know how old he was at the time, get his law school transcript when we were lateraling in as partners, right? So we've modified that approach slightly to some extent. The firm has gotten, when I joined the New York office, it was probably 100 lawyers when we were really heavy on the scale. Now it's 600 lawyers. The firm is over 2,200 lawyers. And so the growth is incredible. But at the same time, the benefit of being in a firm where everybody has that same can do attitude of focus on quality and being willing to help your colleague no matter the nature of the ask. So if it's one off, like, what is this tax issue? Or can you help me with this deal? You want people to say yes. And I think that has been the lasting through for the time. Now we're in a much bigger firm with all sorts of technology changes over the decades, and so a lot has changed. And I am always thinking sort of what is the next thing and how do we embrace it and not being scared of it. So whether, as all the technology and obviously now with AI, just how to think about incorporating the benefits of all these changes into what we do and delivering more efficiently to our clients.
Let's then go to when you became managing partner. How did that come about? Was that a natural progression next step, or was that a it seems like it must have been a very large decision for you both as personally, as a family.
All of the above.
Yeah.
It was not natural. It was not something that I was focused on in any way, shape, or form. I was on the executive committee of our firm, which is the governing body of our law firm. So the way it occurred is um, the managing partner asked all the partners whether they would like to be considered to be a managing partner, or they can nominate anybody else. My name was on the list as one that several people mentioned. uh, and that is when I had to, like, in our COVID lockdown with the family, say, like, do I really want to do this? Because my practice was great. I had everything was going well. And then I thought, like, if I could make a little bit of difference and have an impact, well, that would be amazing. But then I thought, if I don't get it, what does that mean? Could I, like, handle being at the firm when the firm has chosen away from me? I wasn't sure I could. And so I had to, like, dig down deep. But then, I said, what advice would I give my kids if they were asked to do something? And of course, I would say, like, you go for it and you deal with the outcome. And so I did. And I'm really happy I did. It's, everybody kind of gives you condolences when you, and so definitely I was wary. And it's, the herding of cats, your assets walk out every day of the year. But I have really enjoyed the challenge of it, thinking about how to motivate an organization, how to really have an impact on an organization in small ways and big ways. And that the firm has been doing so well makes it even more thrilling that I'm able to deliver for all of these lawyers.
When you became managing partner, was there anything that you were like, you had grinned and you'd done the grin and bear it for many years and you're like, now I get to change this? Or was it much more about preserving the culture? How did you view it when you
Yeah.
thought about it?
I think, as you know, the law firm market has changed dramatically in the last 5 to 8 years or 10 years. And but when you come into a new position, it's very, it's a fragile organization. So you can't just come in and say, out with the old, in with the new, I'm going to do it my way. It's just a much more gradual thing. I needed to modernize the firm in the way we think about competing in the marketplace for talent, thinking about our systems and technology, all the things. And so I prioritized and focused on the ones that were the hardest first, actually. And then have just been working through the list and adding to the list ever since. But it was all with preserving the culture, but pushing us forward. And it's sort of, how do you do both at the same time? And it's trying to inculcate a growth mindset into all the lawyers. It's like, how do you motivate people to do more tomorrow than you did today, to do more next year than you're doing now? And I work on that every day with our colleagues, every day, including starting at 6 a.m. this morning.
I assume I've talked to some people who lead law firms that don't have over 2,000 lawyers, and they estimate that they've been able to keep this much of their practice or that much of their practice. I assume that at your job, this is a full-time job, and it's not like you've got some deals you're working on the side, right?
I am definitely working on deals.
Okay.
I'm working on two really important deals for the clients right now, both cross border, both very, I wouldn't say existential, but very meaningful for the clients. I like keeping my brain focused a little bit in that direction as much as I can. And of course, I'm doing it with other partners, and I would never do it without a full team. But for those clients, it was important that I remain involved, and I'm happy to do it. But it's a very full-time job. This job is very full-time.
So in the vein of, with new things and moving forward as a firm in that growth mindset, I know in 2024, the firm added a whole host of really interesting practice areas from like things I never even could dream of, like royalty finance and data centers, and then you mentioned your First Amendment group. What do you and your team look at for new and developing areas to add to the firm's offerings?
It's really following where our clients are going. So, of course, with the advent of AI and all of the power needs and the compute needs, data centers became the deal du jour. And so sometimes we have the expertise, but it just needs to be highlighted. Like our First Amendment practice, we've been doing First Amendment work for decades. The group just decided we've been doing so much and there's so much focus on it. Let's just form the group. So it's not like we needed to go find talent that has it, but it was just to highlight for our clients that we do it. Data centers is something that is a collection of practices across real estate, energy, regulatory, etc. And we had many, but not all of the pieces. And so then we found the best person in that area, Emily Naughton, added her to the team, launched the data center group, and we've done, I don't know, 150 data center deals last year alone. It's intense all over the world. In
So, you
Abu
know,
Dhabi and US. Yeah, it's very cool.
so really it's taking care of your clients, but also anticipating their needs, then kind of filling in the gaps where you can, and you might already be supporting those needs, just doing it in a focused way.
Exactly.
And I think when I first started working with you, there were, I mean, I remember going to Paris to meet with the guy, and there was a decent size London office, but now you're everywhere, everywhere all the time. How did that come about? And was it again just following the clients, or did you say if we're going to be a major global law firm, we have to be in X and then we have to go there?
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit of both. So Paris is our oldest outside of the US office, which is maybe 55 years old. London, as you know, Neil, from a transactional perspective, to really deliver a global offering on transactions, you need New York, London, and certain major financial centers, depending on where the deal is. Without London, you really can't have a credible global offering. When one of the first areas I focused on 5 years ago was beefing up our London transactional practice, and we had lovely people there, but it never really gelled. And so I really focused in on figuring out the who and hiring very specifically and strategically for London, which has gone super well.
Including one of my old friends.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Rob Dixon.
Yeah.
He's terrific. And then the Middle East was an area where we had a Dubai office, but it was floundering a bit. So I had to figure out sort of go home or go big. And I asked the then of counsel, now partner, who is the best corporate lawyer in the region, and he connected me to two people, one of whom, Marwan El Arabi, is now our partner leading Dubai. And then he led me to the Abu Dhabi office, and they led me to the Riyadh office. So it's sort of incrementally figuring out who being most important and then where our clients are and want to be.
Have you done this growth? I mean, you're still Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher after all these years, and all my other law firms I used to work with are now, some combination of two law firms I
Oh,
used to
right.
work with, or three or
Yeah.
eight, or what was your philosophy to grow without merging with another behemoth?
I mean, we were already large when I took over, so we were probably 1,800 lawyers, maybe. And you know that because culture is so important to us, just adding a bunch of people, I think, would dilute the culture. And so it was never even a thought whether to do it by merger because I just am skeptical. So the philosophy was never to merge. It was always to find sort of the up and coming, high quality, collaborative, entrepreneurial people or groups of people, and take some bets. And I do a lot of the recruiting personally, so I'm like very invested in the individuals and their success, which has luckily worked out. And so it's a pleasure for me to help them integrate into the firm and see how that the platform can support them.
And so, how would you describe your personal like leadership philosophy as a managing partner? How do you think of yourself or see yourself as a leader leading this huge team?
I think a lot of it has come out in this conversation. So first and foremost, I just focus on A+ people, um, and meeting them where they are. Whether it's a regulatory partner or an associate who's having medical issues or a partner who's having mental health issues, sort of making sure that I am connecting with them and helping them with what they want to accomplish in the context of the law firm and trying personally to help them understand the law firm and how they can succeed in the law firm. Sometimes that requires me connecting dots. Like I just spoke to a partner this morning. She said she's traveling to Europe to speak about privacy. I said, did you connect with the German partners to make sure they know you're coming so that they can introduce you to their clients? No, not yet. Would you like me to do that? That would be great. So it's a lot of one-to-one work. So I think that's it. And I think our philosophy of just hiring the right people who have that entrepreneurial personality and let them do, like, eliminate the barriers. Don't put artificial constraints like you focus here or you focus there. Just like help plant the seeds and let them go. And if there are issues, I try to get those partners to speak directly to and give direct and clear feedback to see if we can right it. Because most people come from a very good place, and it's often a miscommunication if there are any types of issues.
It's just about hiring the right people and letting them do what they do best, and obviously that's beneficial
Kind of.
for your clients.
And my like helping them do that a little bit, giving
Yeah.
them.
So not that you've ever made any hiring mistakes, but assuming that someone has, do you have to identify the problem, or does the culture do it for you? Does that make sense?
Well, as you know, lawyers bill by the hours and markets are efficient. And so the problems usually show up if the person is not working hard. And that could be because other people haven't found their expertise yet, or the expertise that they have isn't what people wanted or isn't being delivered in the way people want. So I look at productivity all the time and zero in on the people who have lower hours and make sure I understand why. Obviously, some are health issues or whatever. Some just got off of a huge trial. But if I can interrupt it early, I try to.
I was just on the phone with our advisory board a little bit ago, and we were talking about, is it changing what the law firms need us as a law school to provide? When I got out of law school, I'm not sure I actually knew how to do anything. Certainly nothing useful. I mean, I could write that 60-page memo right next to you that no one ever wanted to read. And I was lucky in that I got put with a group of partners that were just like, here, go do this, you'll be fine. But that doesn't happen for everybody, and not everybody thrown to the wolves like that is going to, I'm going to mix my metaphor, thrown to the wolves and swim. How is that? How have you seen that change, and what are you looking for from what are you looking for us to do in the law school that helps us prepare people that are going to be successful, because that's what we want for them.
Right. I think, as you know, you all prepare lawyers to be litigators really well. Um, and, but I don't think they are prepared to be corporate lawyers. So part of that is introducing the vocabulary of deals, finance, capital structure, just understanding what makes the corporate world move. I think that could be helpful. And I think a lot of law schools have introduced in third years, like clinics where people talk to a deal. I did that at NYU Law School. And I think that was helpful for those who wanted to go into A. But you could see how doing an IPO, blah, blah, all of that could be very helpful. And then just the basics, which I think some schools are putting it into sort of their lawyering program of how to communicate with colleagues, how to communicate with clients, how to be effective and efficient in your writing and clear. And I think that could be helpful. And then, of course, now it's how to use AI safely and do it responsibly, not over rely, check everything, and but use it and embrace it and learn what tools are good for what.
When you look at AI, and so often the conversation about AI is the dumb lawyer that lets ChatGPT write his brief and doesn't notice that those cases don't exist. And I'm like, okay, it's just also boring, because it's like, that's just dumb. Don't do it. We don't need to have a class on don't do something that incredibly dumb. I tend to look at it as the analogy of scientific calculators versus slide rules. But I also recognize that there's a lot of stuff that I did as a first, second, third year associate that the AI can do faster, more efficiently, and were not tremendous learning experiences for me. Droning on into my dictaphone about boxes and boxes of documents was not a formative experience as far as I can tell. How do you think about it in terms of, is it going to lessen your need for first year associates, or how do those first year, second year, third year associates still add the value that they need to justify the crazy amounts that you pay them these days?
Um, I think we don't know the final answer to that question yet. I think for sure the benefit of AI is once you know how to do the dictaphone on the box of documents, that the next time the AI can do that for you. But unless you've gone through and figured out what's important, what do you need to know? How do you know what AI is producing that's useful or not useful to the client? So I think there's a training that occurs that lawyers are still going to be needed to check what the AI is telling us until we are 100% sure it's always going to be correct, which I don't know that we'll ever get to. I read an article recently why VC decided to use Notebook LLM to create his VC documents instead of paying his usual law firm $50K to create. And he was very proud that he could do it with Notebook LLM, creating 2 notebooks. He went through his whole methodology, which is all well and good. And he created the documents and in his mind focused on the right issues. We won't know whether that was successful until years later when an issue comes up or doesn't come up in the documents. So I think there's no shortcut for lawyers still learning the trade, and even using AI to prompt it properly, you still have to understand what you're after. And so I think for law firms, it's still on us to figure out how to train lawyers. And of course, you can't add the strategic value unless you know how to do the steps leading up to that. So, will it ultimately lead to fewer lawyers doing document work? Yes. But could it expand the opportunities for law firms like ours to do more work because we have more bandwidth? Yes. Right. So I think it's not exactly clear how the model comes out, but we can re-podcast in 5 years.
Okay. We'll put it, we may need to put it in your calendar now.
And then teach me how to get.
Now, this is always the point of the podcast where I discover that I've asked all the questions that I've reserved to my student co-host, but have I screwed up what you were going to close with?
No, not really. I mean, the AI thing is big because I personally am scared of AI. So I'm glad that you guys know about it. 'Cause I don't. And I'm going to be ignorant as long as I can. I think
Good corporate law fellows choosing ignorance.
Don't be like, embrace it, use it, figure out the power of it. It's like having a study buddy. It's amazing when used well.
I promise I'll try, but scary, a little bit. But I mean, I think we've talked about what the firm looks for in people and how you just put people in the right places so they can do great work. I think above all else, just as like a question that I would have for you still is even if it's not legal advice, it's or like a legal legally based answer. What's the best piece of advice that you got, whether you were early in your career, or even recently? What's the best advice that you've received?
I think the best advice I've received is what I would give you as advice, which is, well, you specifically embrace AI and learn it. But I think say yes to opportunities. Like one has these opportunities to come into institutions like ours. We do tons of different things, some of which may sound terrible, but in fact, if you said yes and you got exposure to, you would think, oh, that's really interesting. So I would always say, just say yes, stretch yourself, take the opportunity, see what you can learn. Even if you learn you don't like that subject area or that way of doing things or whatever it is, that's still learning. And then secondly, and relatedly, I think approach all things, even as a first year associate or a summer associate, is like, how can I help? What could I do to make the life of the person I'm working for a little bit better? And affirmatively ask, like, what can I do? How can I help? Because that gets you to have more responsibility, more learning, and nobody then feels like they're burdening you with saying, could you just do X or Y for me?
Thank you. Good. That was it.
That was it?
That was end of mine. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least we know what we're working on with you now.
Yeah, the AI. Listen,
Yeah.
and that's gonna be my pet project. I'm gonna learn the AI and like it.
Start small.
Yeah.
Just like go on, and there's so many different tools, but I'm a big fan of Claude. I use Perplexity like I use Google, just asking it anything. But Claude is really enables me to have like a buddy to think through things.
Yeah.
And it's just so useful in so many different ways. So, and there's nothing to be scared of.
Lay down next to the pod. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers reference for those.
I knew.
Yeah. Okay, good. Good. Thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We know how busy you are. I just think, I started the podcast because I've had so many conversations over the years with law students, their parents, and young lawyers who always want to know what the key is to become one of us, one of you. And what I found in doing the podcast is, as you would expect, there is no magic bullet. There is no, oh, if you do this, then everything will follow. But being open to opportunities, and when you see a door ajar, to push it is, I think, the most common thing that comes up over and over. When you look at the changes people have made to go from, doing one thing to like, oh, here's an opportunity. Should I pass? I'm kind of comfortable. Everything seems fine. The people that end up, in GC roles and running law firms are the ones that push on those doors.
Yeah, and you would never have predicted where you are ended up or the path that got you there. But each time you're, choosing to open a door and getting the opportunity, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, one of the great things about social media, and there aren't that many great things, is that I've been able to reconnect and keep in touch with people that I knew 20, 30, 40 years ago. And one of them was saying to me fairly recently that, in all that time we spent watching TV and drinking beer in college trying to decide whether to go to class tomorrow, expat never came up in that conversation. And, because it just wasn't ever on my radar. I mean,
Right.
I'd never been to New York when
Right.
I was in undergrad, let alone Europe. To spend 20 years overseas is something I never conceived of. But when the opportunities came up, and it was, a decision made in conjunction with the family, or at least with my wife, the kids didn't get a vote, much to their chagrin. But that's how you build an interesting career. And it's
Oh.
not just about the money,
Totally.
I hope.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure, Neil. And if I can help, let me know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Bye.